Pain. Pain is the villain who speaks Naruto's most uncomfortable truth. Peace is beautiful propaganda when you've never been the battlefield. Nagato grows up in Amegakure, a country literally crushed by the great nations that fought for power while using smaller territories as a doormat. That forges a cold line of reasoning. The ninja world isn't a system of honor, it's a war market. Villages sell ninjas, countries buy destruction, and the victims rarely have names. Pain's idea is born from a logic the real world knows all too well: deterrence through catastrophe. If everyone fears the cost, no one pulls the trigger. He takes the Akatsuki, gathers the Biju, creates the ultimate weapon, and plans to impose a cycle: extreme violence, collective trauma, long truce. It's nuclear logic, just without diplomacy and without a moral break. And as monstrous as it is, he's right when he points out the hypocrisy. The villages talk about will of fire, honor, protection, but they were raised on war. That's the point of his impact. Pain doesn't attack Konoha. Pain makes Konoha feel what the world has always felt. When he erases the village, the message is, you only understand pain when it comes home. And it works narratively because Naruto is forced to respond not with a punch, but with philosophy. How do you break the cycle without becoming the next pain? But Nagato's contradiction is fatal. He wants to end war by creating the ultimate terror. His peace is a cemetery peace, maintained by fear, and fear doesn't create virtue, it creates temporary obedience. Pain is right in his diagnosis and brilliant in his critique, but he chooses a cure that kills the patient. Pain is the best proof that being right doesn't make you just. It makes you dangerous. From collective pain to justice written in death. Light Yagami. Light Yagami begins as the forbidden fantasy of any exhausted society. If I had the power, I'd clean up the world. And here's the key detail. The series shows the world responding. Crime drops, fear seeps into everyday life. The idea of Kira becomes a real political force. Light is right to expose the system's practical failure. Justice is slow, selective, and often powerless. And the sense of impunity feeds even more violence. But the Death Note doesn't test justice, it tests character under absolute power. And Light fails quickly. Because the moment he accepts that he can kill, he also accepts that he can decide who deserves to live. Justice becomes aesthetic. Criminals die, then it turns into anyone who gets in my way dies, then into anyone who suspects me dies. The cause becomes an excuse, and the most terrifying line is crossed. Light doesn't just want to reduce crime, he wants to be worshipped. The "he was right" argument lives in the discomfort. It's impossible to deny that real societies also operate through selective violence, just institutionalized. Light simply strips away the veneer. He becomes exactly what he claims to fight: a judge, accountable to no one. When innocents end up on the list, the mask drops. It's not justice, it's control. That's why Light is still debated today. He forces you to face a question no one likes. If the world became safer under a tyrant, would you accept it? Because the temptation of Kira isn't the notebook, it's the promise of order without human mess. Light was right about the problem. He was wrong to believe he'd be a benevolent god rather than a vain dictator. From divine justice to realistic revolution in a world of pirates. Don Quixote, Doflamingo. Doflamingo is a monster, but he speaks a truth that One Piece rubs in your face. The world isn't ruled by morality, it's ruled by narrative and power. He was born a Tenryubito, fell from heaven, and was lynched by the same humans his caste once crushed. That breeds a corrosive cynicism. Justice changes depending on who's holding the microphone. His speech about war and winners is brutally accurate. Whoever wins writes history. Whoever loses becomes the official villain. And in One Piece, that's literal. The world government erases events, manufactures heroes, turns criminals into shichibukai when convenient, demonizes entire people, buys silence. Doflamingo doesn't invent corruption. He's a refined product of it. His impact on Dressrosa is the lesson. He builds a happy kingdom with invisible terror, manipulates memories, turns humans into puppets, profits from weapons and chaos, and still keeps the facade of a legitimate king. And here's where he's right. Systems like this exist because they work. The world tolerates monsters when monsters are useful. Public morality is flexible when the table is full. But Doflamingo uses a real truth to justify his own rot. The world is hypocritical becomes an excuse to be cruel without limit. He doesn't want to fix the system. He wants to be the dominant predator within it. And that turns his critique into poison. He nails the diagnosis of global decay, but chooses to be the cancer, not the surgeon. Doflamingo is the sentence no one wants to admit. The world is unjust. Doesn't give you the right to become injustice itself. From false kings to peace imposed by hierarchy. Madara Uchiha. Madara is the villain who says what Naruto tries to deny. The ninja world doesn't learn. He lived through eras of clans exterminating each other, watched peace turn into nothing more than an intermission, saw alliances last only as long as they were useful. And when you look at the history of that universe, his thesis holds weight. Every time someone wins, someone else seeks revenge. Every peace becomes the seed of a future war. His solution is the infinite Tsukuyomi, a perfect dream on a global scale. No pain, no loss, no conflict. And this isn't Saturday morning villainy, it's a radical philosophy. If free will always produces suffering, then freedom itself is the problem. Madara trades dignity for comfort. He trades choice for stability. And the disturbing part is that in such a violent world, this sounds rational. His impact is both narrative and political. Madara doesn't want to take over a village. He wants to take over reality. That's what makes him the ultimate villain who's right. He doesn't describe evil as evil. He describes it as inevitable. And then he tries to fix human nature by erasing it. But his mistake is exactly what he tries to destroy. Humanity is chaos, yes, but it's also creation. Without freedom, there is no courage, no chosen love, no real friendship, only programming. Madara's perfect dream is a prison wrapped in gift paper, and the irony is cruel. He claims to hate the cycle of hatred, yet tries to end it through the most absolute form of violence, the violence done to the mind. Madara is right to call Ninja Peace a performance. He's wrong to believe the solution is shutting humanity off. From a perfect dream to another pirate who understood too early how power really worked. Crocodile. Crocodile is a right villain because he understands a truth Luffy refuses to accept. Idealism doesn't stop hunger, bullets, or a failed state. In Alabasta, reality is dry, poor, and steeped in political manipulation. And Crocodile arrives with the mindset of a war CEO. Control water, and you control life. Control life, and you control the people. Control the people, and you control the country. His plan is perverse, but logical. Create instability, become the savior, seize the throne, and use Pluton, or the myth of it, as geopolitical leverage. He sees the world as a chessboard of resources and fear, and once again, One Piece validates that reading because the world government has operated that way for centuries. Crocodile's narrative impact is that he forces Luffy to grow. Luffy loses, bleeds, realizes that sheer will doesn't beat sand and cold calculation. Crocodile is the first major slap in the face to classic shonen logic in One Piece. There are enemies who aren't defeated with speeches, only with absurd persistence and a clear reading of the game. But Crocodile is right, only up to the moment he decides the people are disposable. His critique of idealism becomes an excuse to turn into a tyrant. He doesn't want stability for Alabasta, he wants Alabasta as an asset. And there his realism reveals its true name, opportunism. Crocodile is the cruel reminder that sometimes the villain isn't insane, he's just the adult in a room full of dreams. The problem is that this adult takes pleasure in crushing dreams, from political realism to heroism corroded from within. Aizen Sosuke. Aizen is right when he calls the Soul Society a rotten system dressed up as tradition. He isn't inventing an enemy, he points it out. The world of the Shinigami hands down sentences for convenience, uses laws as weapons, hides the truth about the Soul King, and maintains a hierarchy that demands blind obedience. And the greatest irony? Many of the good captains accept all of this because it's comfortable. Aizen is the definitive critique of the sacred status quo. He doesn't want to overthrow just a villain, he wants to tear down the very idea that there is a natural order. The Hogyoku, to him, is just a tool. The real goal is to rise above everyone else and force the world to confront its own lie. The impact is that Aizen exposes structural weakness. It's not just he's strong, it's he won because the system is fragile. He manipulates, infiltrates, controls narratives, and the Soul Society reacts too late because it trusts too much in its own rituals and titles. But the bitter truth is this: Aizen denounces tyranny, only to become the supreme tyrant. He hits the critique perfectly, but his end goal was never freedom, it was superiority. And that destroys the moral legitimacy of the revolution. Because when you replace a false god with a vain one, you haven't changed the world. You've just changed who's holding the leash. Aizen is the right villain who proves why revolutions fail. The diagnosis can be perfect, but personal ambition contaminates everything. From corrupt systems to a man who killed the very idea of the hero with his own hands. Eren Yeager. Eren Yeager is the villain who reaches the conclusion no one wanted to admit. The world has already decided who deserves to live. From the very beginning, Marley and the rest of the planet see Eldians as a genetic threat. It doesn't matter how much they explain themselves, kneel, or cooperate. Their fate is already written. Eren doesn't create the hatred. He simply responds to it with brutal honesty. The rumbling doesn't come out of nowhere. It's an extreme strategic response to a scenario where diplomacy is theater. Eren understands that the world only respects absolute force. If his people's existence depends on the total destruction of the enemy, then he chooses to be the monster, not out of pleasure, but out of calculation. He accepts being hated, killed, and remembered as a genocidal figure if that guarantees a few years of real freedom for his friends. The psychological impact is what makes Eren right in his diagnosis. He no longer believes in clean solutions. He understands that every choice is dirty. The difference is who carries the guilt. Eren decides to carry it alone. He becomes the villain so others can keep seeing themselves as human. The error is obvious and unforgivable. Genocide doesn't become liberation just because it's wrapped in personal sacrifice. Eren was right about the world's structural cruelty. He was wrong to decide that exterminating the world is the same as breaking chains. Eren didn't go insane. He accepted the darkest logic possible and paid the price. From strategic extermination to total escape from reality, Obito Uchiha. Obito doesn't break because he's weak. He breaks because he understands too early. He sees that the ninja world raises children to die, calls it honor, and then wonders why monsters exist. When Rin dies, it isn't just the loss of the person he loved. It's confirmation that empathy is punished and violence is rewarded. The infinite Tsukuyomi plan, for Obito, isn't domination. It's collective surrender. A world where no one loses anyone, where war doesn't exist, where trauma is never born. He doesn't want to rule the dream. He wants to disappear into it. And that makes his motivation terrifyingly understandable. Obito is right when he accuses the ninja system of being a machine that grinds children down. He's right to call leaders hypocrites who mourn deaths they themselves manufacture. The world Kakashi defends is the same world that broke Obito. The fatal mistake is denying people the right to choose suffering and growth. Obito's dream is too comfortable. It anesthetizes all of humanity, and an anesthetized humanity doesn't live. It merely exists. Obito was right to reject the world as it is. He was wrong to decide that no one deserves the chance to try to change it. From perfect illusions to justice built with blood. Stain. Stain is the villain who says something My Hero Academia avoids at first. Heroes became a brand. Rankings, contracts, sponsors, fame. The hero profession turned into a career, not a calling. Stain doesn't hate heroes. He hates fake heroes, those who save for money, status, or ego. And the impact is real. After Stain, the world changes. Heroes start questioning themselves. Young people reconsider why they want to walk that path. Even All Might admits that Stain's words struck a deep nerve. He wasn't ignored. He was absorbed by the system as a corrective shock. But Stain falls into the classic trap. He appoints himself absolute judge. He decides who is pure and who deserves to die. The critique turns into moral terrorism. He fights tyranny with personal tyranny, and that strips away any ethical superiority he believed he had. Stain is right to expose hypocrisy, wrong to believe killing creates virtue. Morality isn't born from the blade, it's born from choice, even when no one is watching. Stain proves that telling the truth doesn't automatically make you just. Sometimes it just makes you more dangerous. From forced purity to a king who understands efficiency better than any human. Meruem. Meruem is born as the perfect villain because he doesn't share human hypocrisy. He observes the world and quickly concludes, the strong dominate, the weak suffer. Humans exploit humans. States exploit people. He simply verbalizes this without pretending to be kind. When he meets Kamugi, Meruem evolves. He understands that value isn't just brute strength. Even so, his conclusion remains cold. The world needs efficient leadership, even if authoritarian. An elite government that protects the majority, even from the majority's own ignorance. That idea is terrifying because it has been tried countless times throughout human history, always with the same argument. We know what's best for you. Meruem isn't original. He's honest. Meruem's mistake is believing efficiency can replace dignity. He improves the world as if he were optimizing a system, not dealing with lives. Even after developing empathy at the end, his vision never truly abandons authoritarianism. Meruem was right to expose the world's structural cruelty. He was wrong to treat people as pieces on a board. From biological kings to the closing of the logic of the right villains, Akainu. Akainu is the villain who doesn't hide behind pretty philosophy. He is brutally honest. Pirates are criminals. and criminals must die. In the world of One Piece, pirates loot, enslave, and destroy entire islands, and most civilians suffer because of it. Akainu represents the simplest and most direct response to that chaos: zero tolerance. Akainu's absolute justice isn't born from gratuitous sadism. It comes from the collective trauma of a world that has lived for centuries under pirates, armed revolutions, and maritime anarchy. To him, any loophole becomes tragedy. Any exception becomes precedent. That's why desertion is betrayal, hesitation is complicity, and mercy is institutional weakness. Akainu's impact at Marineford makes this clear. He doesn't fight for glory. He doesn't give heroic speeches. He executes. He kills Ace not out of personal hatred, but because Ace is Roger's son and a symbol of everything he believes must be eradicated. Ace's death isn't emotional, it's political, and that makes Akainu terrifyingly coherent. But his error is structural. Akainu confuses order with justice. He completely ignores context, causes, the oppression of the world government, and the crimes of the Tenryubito. His absolute justice protects civilians, while turning a blind eye to official slavery, genocides erased from history, and state corruption. He fights monsters of the sea while serving monsters of the sky. Akainu was right to argue that the world needs firm law. He was wrong to believe that law without morality doesn't become tyranny. He isn't a villain for killing pirates. He's a villain for killing the very idea of justice by reducing it to blind obedience. Akainu is the question no one likes to answer. How far would you go to maintain order, even knowing that the order protects indefensible things? From absolute justice to silent sacrifice? Itachi Uchiha. Itachi is the villain who accepts becoming a monster to prevent a greater disaster. He discovers that the Uchiha clan is planning a coup that would lead to a civil war within Konoha, possibly igniting a global conflict. Faced with that, he chooses cold math. Sacrifice hundreds to save thousands. His decision isn't impulsive, it's strategic. He accepts carrying hatred, destroying his own family, and living as a criminal so the village can survive. Itachi doesn't see himself as a hero. He sees himself as a disposable tool, and that's what makes him so tragic. He was right to foresee the disaster. The ninja system truly wouldn't withstand an internal war of that scale. But Itachi's mistake is a human one. He believes trauma can be controlled. He thinks Sasuke can carry focused hatred and still grow up healthy. That fails completely. Itachi was right in his geopolitical calculation. He was wrong to underestimate the psychological cost. He saves the village by destroying his own brother. The price wasn't just blood, it was legacy. Itachi proves that right choices can produce irreparable consequences. You've just met 12 anime villains who were right about the problem, but wrong in the sentence. Pain understood war. Light understood the failure of justice. Madara understood the cycle of hatred. Akainu understood chaos without law. Eren understood the world's structural hatred. The pattern is clear. Villains see truths that heroes avoid, but choose solutions that destroy everything in their path. If you liked the video, leave a like and comment below. Which villain do you think was the most right, even though they went too far? And in the next video, you'll get the full breakdown of every Saiyan transformation in Dragon Ball, from Super Saiyan 1 to the most surprising one that few people know about. Click the video on the screen and come watch it with me. Thanks for watching. My name is Zento, and this was Zento Explained. See you next time.